All right. So today we're focusing once again on argument paper number 5, the human conscience. And this is dealing with Act 4, Scene 3, lines 1 through 58. So here is the No Fear Shakespeare version. So on Monday we discussed the left-hand side, which is the Shakespeare version. Today we're going to read the translated version, which is the more English-sounding, standard, regular, everyday words. So Juliet says, well, first of all, let's go back to the questions. How does Juliet's conscience make her feel about drinking the Friar Lawrence's potion? Do you think the fear that Juliet feels is realistic? And in your opinion, do you believe that Juliet made the right decision? And then how much does your conscience influence your everyday life? So Juliet says, yes, those are the best clothes, but gentle nurse, please leave me alone tonight. I have to say a lot of prayers to make the heavens bless me. You know that my life is troubled and full of sin. Lady Capulet responds, what? Are you busy? Do you need my help? Juliet says, no, madam. We figured out the best thing for me to wear tomorrow at the ceremony. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to be left alone now. Hold on one second. Let me zoom in. It's kind of far away. Okay. Let the nurse sit up with you tonight. I'm sure you have your hands full preparing for the sudden festivities. Mom replies, good night. Go to bed and get some rest. I'm sure you need it. Now, this part right here is what starts see how long it is? Well, in the real version, you'll see it starts from line 14 and it goes all the way to line 59. And so if you think about, like, I would talk about this in the if we were in actual class, but I would say, like, this is when I would emphasize the idea of acting, right? These are actors on a stage, and for this particular part, this would be like, a musician, like in a band, who's playing his guitar riff, and he has a solo, right? This is her solo. That's why it's called a soliloquy, right? Solo. And so it's her by herself, and all of her acting skills are going to come out, right? Because we can't forget this is a play. And so the whole point of plays is to show and to portray, real life through acting. Anyhow, so here is hers in the English version. So remember, she has the potion in her hand. Goodbye. Only God knows when we'll meet again. There is a slight cold fear cutting through my veins. It almost freezes the heat of life. I'll call them back here to comfort me. Nurse! Oh, what good will she do here? In my desperate situation, I have to act alone. So she's calling back nurse, right? But she's like, no, I have to do this by myself. Friar Lawrence explicitly explained what has to happen. All right, here's the vial. What if the mixture doesn't work at all? Will I be married tomorrow morning? No, this knife will stop it. Lie down right there. She lays down the knife. So we talked about how she lost some confidence in Friar Lawrence for that moment. That's why she thinks this knife is going to help her out. What if the friar mixed the potion to kill me? Is he worried that he will be disgraced if I marry Paris after he married me to Romeo? I'm afraid that it's poison, and yet it should be poison because he is a trustworthy, holy man. I'm sorry, shouldn't be poison. What if, when I am put in the tomb, I wake up before Romeo comes to save me? That's a frightening idea. When I suffocate in the tomb, there's no healthy air to breathe in there, while I die of suffocation before Romeo comes. Or will I die of suffocation before Romeo comes? Or if I live, I'll be surrounded by death and darkness. It will be terrible. There will be bones hundreds of years old in that tomb, my ancestors' bones. Tybalt's body will be in there, freshly entombed, and his corpse will be rotting. They will say that during the night the spirits are in the tombs. Oh no, oh no.
I'll wake up and smell awful odors. I'll hear screams that would drive people crazy. So as you can see here, it's obvious. It should be pretty clear to you what is happening. In the Shakespearean way, obviously, there's a beauty to Shakespeare that you have to study it a lot. And so, like when I went to college, there's one class that I took that was devoted to just studying Shakespeare. So imagine taking my class, right? And I'm teaching you in quarter 4, parts of it, especially because of this COVID-19. But imagine every day from January to May or June, we are talking about Shakespeare. So you might say, oh, heck no, man, I don't want to do that. But what happens because of that is that you learn so much more, and then you're forced to literally learn how to understand. It's literally like learning a new language. I know some of you guys speak Spanish and English. And so whatever your, natural language, the language you were raised speaking, that comes to you more naturally. And then obviously your second language it comes not as natural. Although the longer you live with both languages, the more you can interact effectively. But if you think about it, there's 3 layers of language. There's reading, writing, and speaking. So right now we are, 1, reading Shakespeare, but then when you read it, you have to speak it out loud, right? Especially if you're going to have that full grasp and appreciation for how things are said. And then you have the listening of it where, people can hear how it sounds. So that's kind of why, and when I'm talking about this whole idea of reading, writing, speaking, listening, there's this kind of beauty in it. But when you read the No Fear Shakespeare, it loses a lot of that. It's just like a translation. So anyhow, so she says, if I wake up too early, won't I go insane with all these horrible, frightening things around me? Start playing with my ancestors' bones and pull Tybalt's corpse out of his death shroud while I grab one of my dead ancestors' bones and bash in my own skull? Oh, look, I think I see my cousin Tybalt's ghost. He's looking for Romeo because Romeo killed him with his sword. Wait, Tybalt, wait. Romeo. Here's a drink. I drink to you. She drinks from the vial and falls on her bed, hidden by her bed curtains. So the bed curtains are, like old school beds. They have like these little curtains that go around the entire bed, and it allows to keep light out basically, and also for privacy. So that's essentially what happens. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go back up now, and I want to find the part where Juliet's talking to Friar Lawrence. So right here, so this is Act 4. Let me see here. Go back up a little bit. So Juliet is arriving to Friar Lawrence's cell, his house, his home. And when she arrives, she is basically overwhelmed with the fact that she's going to have to marry Paris. And she's like, Friar Lawrence, you got to come up with something. So let's start right here. So we're kind of going back in time now, right? Flashback. So before she just drank that potion, this is what got us there. Juliet says, oh, bid me leap rather than marry Paris. Remember, she's talking to Friar Lawrence. From off the battlements of yonder tower, or walk in thievish ways, or bid me lurk where serpents are. Chain me with roaring bears, or shut me nightly in a carnal house, or covered quite with dead men's rattling bones, with reeky shanks and yellow chapless skulls, or bid me go into a new-made grave and hide me with a dead man in his shroud. Things that, to hear them told, have made me tremble, and I will do it without fear or doubt to live an unstained wife to my sweet love. So if you read this part, this is literally like foreshadowing what
Friar Lawrence in what she actually did, because she's saying like, put me with the dead men, right? And this is before Friar Lawrence comes up with that plan. So she's saying, put me with these dead people, with these chapless skulls, with dead men, a dead man in his shroud. Remember that ends up becoming like Tybalt, right? He's the dead man in the shroud. Things that to hear them told. So she's like, I'll do anything so that I don't have to marry Paris. So it says to live an unstained wife. So here's the deal. If you're married, right? So Juliet is married, you can't go around and marry someone else. Now, obviously, I'm sure people have tried to do that, and people do that in society. But she, being this, good girl, good person, she's not trying to become an unstained wife, because that would mean, because remember, this is the whole point. She was a virgin. Romeo and Juliet, they met up in the night when Friar Lawrence said, go back to, your wife and make her your wife officially by consummating the marriage. And then what happens is, so since she did that, and so now she's not a virgin anymore, she can't just go off and be with another guy, especially if she's already married. So this is very important to her. So that's why she's willing to do anything not to become that stained wife, right? So the Friar Lawrence then gives her some good news. He goes, hold then, go home, be merry, give consent to marry Paris. Wednesday is tomorrow. Tomorrow night, look that thou lie alone. So we find out that yes, so he's telling her, go, sleep by yourself tomorrow. Let not the nurse lie with thee in thy chamber. Shows her a vial. Take thou this vial, being then in bed, and this distilled liquor drink thou off, when presently through all thy veins shall run a cold and drowsy humor, for no pulse shall keep his native progress, but surcease. So it's basically saying that you drink this potion and you're going to have no pulse. You're going to have this drowsiness to you. No warmth, no breath shall testify thou livest. So it's saying you're not going to be warm. You're not going to have any breath. It's going to look like you're dead. The roses in thy lips and cheeks shall fade. So obviously her redness in her lips and then her little redness in her cheeks, they're going to fade to palely ashes. So she's going to become pale, and it's going to look like she's dead. Thy eyes' windows fall like death when he shuts up the day of life. This idea of death is going to pop up again, but death is, so notice how he's saying death when he shuts up the day of life. So in this case, death, not necessarily the act of dying, even though he is saying that, but it's like a pun, like a play, where he's saying death as in like the Grim Reaper type person, right? Death when he shuts up the day of life, because death has the power to take away your life. He says, each part deprived of supple government shall stiff and stark and cold appear like death. And in this borrowed likeness of shrunk death, thou shalt continue. So now here's that time. I think I told you guys on Monday, but here is that time. He says, thou shalt continue 42 hours. So basically 40 plus 2, 42 hours is going to look like you're dead. And then awake as from a pleasant sleep. So he's saying, drink this potion, and it's going to make you look dead for 42 hours, right? And that 42 hours is going to give everyone enough time to figure out what to do next, kind of thing. Now, when the bridegroom in the morning comes to rouse thee from thy bed, there art thou dead. So he's saying, then your bridegroom, so Paris is going to come for you in the morning to make you his wife, and you're going to be dead. Then, as the manner of our country is, in thy best robes uncovered on their bier, thou shalt be borne to that same ancient vault where all the kindred of the Capulets lie. So he's saying, eventually then we're going to take you to the vault, right, which is like the tomb, and we're going to put you in there with all the other Capulets, right? In the meantime, against thou shall awake, shall Romeo by my letters know our drift. And hither shall he come, and he and I will watch thy waking, and that very night shall Romeo bear thee hence to Mantua. and this shall free thee from the present shame. So he's saying he's going to write letters, right, to Romeo, because Romeo's already in Mantua. So he's going to write these letters, and then Romeo's going to read them, and then he's going to come back to town. Him and Friar Lawrence are going to go to the tomb. Juliet will be waking up, and then Romeo will take Juliet back to Mantua, and then that'll give Friar Lawrence some time to make his second part of the plan. And this shall free him from his present shame, if no inconstant toy, nor womanish fear abate thy valor in the acting it. Now, Friar Lawrence has mentioned womanish a few times. He's what you call, I guess the word we would use today possibly is like macho. So during this time also, and this is like old school mentality, men are supposed to be a certain way, women are supposed to be a certain way. And what that means is a woman's supposed to be feminine. She's supposed to care about her skin and her looks and all the different things that associate with women. Men are supposed to be strong, valiant, like the hero and so on. So when Friar Lawrence says, and this shall free thee from the present shame, if no constant toy nor womanish fear abate thy valor in the acting of it. So he's saying, if you're not afraid to do this, Juliet, if you're not too womanish, then this is going to work. Right? So it's almost like he's motivating her, like trying to how sometimes people say something like, you can't do this, and people are like, oh, watch, let me show you. So when he says, nor womanish fear abate thy valor in the acting it, that motivates her to say, give me, oh, tell me not of fear. So she's like ready to take it, right? She's like this. Even in the movie, it really shows a good part of that. When she says this line, she is absolutely desperate, and to me, that's kind of the saddest part of people is when they're desperate, because she has no other way to deal with this issue. Then Friar Lawrence says, it gives her a vow. Hold, get you gone, be strong and prosperous in this resolve. I'll send a friar with speed to Mantua with my letters to thy lord. So Friar Lawrence is gonna send another friar with letters to Mantua to explain to Romeo everything that's gonna happen. Now, if I'm teaching this in regular school, I would talk about the fact that like nowadays, it'd be similar to where, like, say you were to call somebody on your cell phone and they don't answer. You're like, man, I was calling you right now. I wanted to get a hold of you. Or like texting them and maybe their phone's dead, so they're not getting any of their texts. So we'll talk more about that later. But at this point, Friar Lawrence is going to send a letter. So at this stage in history, right, letters were the way of communicating with other people. Juliet says, Lord, love, give me strength, and strength shall help afford. Farewell, dear father. And so that's that scene where now she takes off to go back home, essentially to tell her parents, leave me alone tonight. Nurse, leave me alone. Mom, leave me alone. Lady Capulet, leave me alone. And then she's going to drink the potion, and it's going to make her look dead for 42 hours. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to stop this.